One of the interesting things about doing a climate change experiment is it makes you watch the weather even more closely than we normally do. And what's been surprising is just how many extremes we're getting.
Climate change affects every aspect of our life, from where we get our food, ecosystem, pollination, droughts, water security. It's such a huge challenge that we face.
So why study grasslands? They're not necessarily the system that comes to mind when you're thinking about endangered ecosystems, but actually we've lost about 97% of the species-rich grasslands in the UK since World War II. We graze animals on them, we take crops off them and so on. But grasslands actually, like woodlands, forests, they also store a lot of carbon, not so much above ground but down in the soil. And actually if you scaled grasslands up so that the grassland plants were on the same scale as rainforest trees, some of the richest systems in Europe would rival the diversity of those rainforest systems.
The Raindrop Experiment was set up in 2016. And overall its purpose is to look at the effect of drought on the grassland community.
And in our experiment what we're doing is we're reducing rainfall by 50% and taking that 50% of the rain that we capture and we're adding it back on other plots. And the way that we're doing that is with these rain shelters.
The shelters have these sort of gutters in place which are kind of V-shaped, so they intercept some of the rainfall and then it goes into these buckets where it's collected and then redistributed to the irrigated plots which receive 50% more rainfall. So it's looking to see, is there a difference in the plant community directly underneath these plots?
In total what we have are sort of control plots that are just experiencing ambient conditions. They're sort of tracking climate change as it happens. And then we're sort of trying to go into the future and see with the drought treatment what might happen if droughts become more frequent and more intense.
May 2020 was the driest month on record, I think since records began, since 1896. So it just kind of goes to show the importance of the drought experiment itself and just trying to understand how the new climate that we're seeing, how that will affect the ecosystems.
We've had some really extreme dry periods and that poses us difficulties because we can only apply what comes in. There's no rain, so 50% of nothing is nothing. It's early days still in many ways. One thing is we're finding that the drought is having an effect on the ecosystem here.
Individuals that I marked last year have moved a bit, so plants have this ability to move very slowly, so not like animals, but the ones in the drought experiment seem to be kind of crawling their way outside the drought. They're going to where the conditions are nicer, and in the irrigated plots they seem to be going more to where the conditions are much nicer, where there's a lot more rain and away from the edges. So that's kind of cool.
Actually, for me, I think the most interesting results will be not just what we see here at this one site in Oxford, but will really come from combining all the data together into the global database, because then we'll really be able to build up a global picture of the impacts of drought. And then by piecing those all together, we should really be able to get a bigger picture of how rainfall controls ecosystems, how diverse they are and how they function. So it's really that big picture by combining all the data together that I think will be the most interesting result. But it's going to take a while to get there.